What if I told you your brain is lying to you right now? That's an illusion. Quick question. Is this dress white and gold or blue and black? People argued about this online. Same image, same eyes. Completely different answers. Now what about this one? Which way is she spinning? Clockwise or counterclockwise? These are not tricks. Your brain is doing something remarkable. And today, we are going to find out exactly what. Here's something you may have seen floating around the internet. If you see the dancer spinning clockwise, you're more right-brained, creative and artistic. If you see her going counterclockwise, you're left-brained, logical and analytical. This idea went viral. The idea that you are either a left-brain person or a right-brain person. But there's a problem. This is not what the science actually says. So why do different people see the dancer differently? Let's start with the basics. There's a difference between sensation and perception. Sensation is the raw effect of a stimulus on your sensory organs. For example, light hitting your retina and sound waves hitting your eardrum. Perception is the brain's elaboration and interpretation of that stimulus. This is based on what you already know about how the world is structured. The spinning dancer is what neuroscientists call a bistable optical illusion, meaning it has two stable interpretations. Because it's a silhouette, there's no shading to tell your brain whether her leg is passing in front of her body or behind her body. And that single missing piece of information is everything. According to the science, there are three key reasons why different people see different things. So first is ambiguous depth. Because the image is a silhouette, there's no shading to tell if the leg is passing in front or behind. Second, top-down bias. Most observers naturally see the dancer from the above, which produces the clockwise rotation. But if you shift your perspective to view her from below, she will appear to turn counterclockwise. Third is brain interpretation. Because the brain attempts to create a 3D image from a 2D one, it creates a best guess, and that best guess can flip. Now, you can actually switch the direction by yourself. Focus on the shadow of the feet on the floor to figure out which foot is passing in front. Or try using your peripheral vision, like look away or blink very rapidly, and that can break the current perception. However, none of these switches tells you anything about your personality. There's just different ways of resolving the same ambiguous depth information. The spinning dancer isn't telling us about personality. But that doesn't mean the left and right hemispheres do the same thing. They actually don't. Real neuroscience reveals something genuinely fascinating, which is a difference in processing style, global versus local processing. Let's start with what visual-spatial processing actually is. According to neuroscience, visual-spatial processing refers to the brain's ability to perceive, interpret, and manipulate visual information in space. It has three components. First, visual perception, which is recognizing faces, objects, and patterns. Second, spatial awareness, which is understanding position, distance, and orientation. Lastly is motor coordination, which is translating visual information into coordinated movement. In a classic study, researchers measured how patients with damage to one side of their brain copy a specific stimulus. On the screen, it shows small letters arranged to form a larger letter, and the individual letters are called the local elements, and the overall shape they create is called the global element. Here's what the research showed. Patients with right brain damage, meaning their left hemisphere was intact, could accurately draw the individual local letters. However, they completely failed to arrange them into the correct global shape, which means the left hemisphere tends toward local, detail-focused processing. And patients with left brain damage which means their right hemisphere intact, drew the overall global shape correctly but omitted every single local element, which leads to the conclusion that the right hemisphere tends toward global and holistic processing. Have you ever seen the painting of Giuseppe Arcimboldo? Now look at this painting. What do you see? A face made entirely of fruit and vegetables. Researchers use these paintings to test hemispheric specialization in split brain patients. These are patients whose corpus callosum has been surgically severed, and when there's no connection between two hemispheres, each side of hemisphere must process visual information on its own. Here's the experiment. Researchers flashed an Arcimboldo image very briefly to either the left or right visual field of a split brain patient. And when the image was sent to the right hemisphere, the patient reported seeing a face. When the exact same image was sent to the left hemisphere, the patient reported seeing a fruits and vegetables, which is not a face. The result is also consistent with the findings from the previous experiment I explained. So, back to the spinning dancer. Regardless of which direction you see her spinning, the direction you perceive simply depends on how your brain resolves the depth ambiguity. It has nothing to do with whether you're a left brain or right brain person. In fact, both hemispheres are always working together through the corpus callosum. The left brain, right brain myth imagines the brain as two separate people living in your head. But the science tells a very different story. What we actually have are two systems with different but complementary strengths which constantly communicate. It's not left brain versus right brain. It's left brain with right brain.